Hello, just a quick update wujo, a Wednesday wujo ahead of our little Thursday ones, which are starting to become a habit. Can't have that. Wanted to pass on some information about what I'm looking for Bitcoin, gold, and silver, especially over these next few weeks as we progress through this rather critical time. I keep mentioning that I've got a description of a pattern for Bitcoin that is a temporal marker, and I think we're actually seeing that yesterday and today. I'm going to sort of draw the pattern as it's been described to us by the data. And what we're looking at for Bitcoin, if it were graphed out with a price in dollars over time, we would see something from, say, 650, let's say 3 or so in dollars at this level, and we would see Bitcoin start moving at an angle that would be too steep if it were a hillside to walk up. Can we see that? Not really. Okay, let's try it again. There we go. Is that showing up? Let's try something else. Let's see if we have any. There we go. There's a nice black color to use. All right. All right. So this is our time axis, or our dollar axis. This is our time axis. Here's a 653-ish there, and here we have our Bitcoin angle would be something like this, but it's going to have these little spiky things. I mean, I don't know how to describe this because I'm not a chartist guy. Then there'd be another leg up like that, and another one of these things. These little protuberances within the progression upward are described as the handholds that Bitcoin uses to climb up. Then it'll reach an area that's around 688 or so in US dollars, and there might be a half a dozen of these little spikes in there, I don't know. But the general angle is like this, with these spikes overlaying the top of it. And then once it reaches about 688 or so, it takes off towards 1,000, but it's no longer that steep. But it's at a walking angle with presumable little ups and downs, but at a much more broader flat angle. So this area right in here, might as well use our colors, see if they show up on this camera. This area right in here, where we're at today, I think we're actually seeing the beginning of this effect. And it's this effect right here that we're looking for, these handholds, this Bitcoin climbing up section of the of time as a temporal marker, that's going to provide us with our connection into silver and gold. Because in the data sets, we have a connection between the 688 as a temporal marker for silver at or above 22, and headed up in the first of what are described as air gaps. Now, air gaps is a kind of a funny descriptor, but that's what came through. And basically what it is, it's describing charts like this where the price will rise so rapidly in silver once it goes beyond this particular threshold level at around the $23 mark. It'll then start going up in a fashion that leads to the chart actually having a gap where it's going up like that. Then it has to gap up here because the distance between this price and that price is actually a big jump. If any of that showed up, I've got all of these reflections, but basically we're talking an air gap is a chart kind of a pattern thing that was actually described, and there are these number of them. And so there's like a gap in here where it'll go from, basically, as far as we're being shown here, $23 up to $26 with not a whole lot in between. A very unusual situation. I mean, described in the data sets as being okay, so the data describes the language coming out about this phenomenon of these air gaps as invoking words in the media such as unprecedented, never before seen, shocking, destructive, elevating, all different kinds of language talking about how odd it is to have a gap in the markets where there's no no fulfillment, if you will, of prices. So it's like that, you know, it would say $23.22 here, and then the next price is, you know, $23.90, and then the next price is $24.60, and so on. So that you very rapidly cross through to $26 thereabouts without a whole lot of stuff in between. And so there's, insofar as the charting of it, it's more like little points as opposed to the steady graph up. And these air gaps are coincident with the Italian banks taking such a huge hit that it blows back onto the Vatican and because of some scandals there. All different other kinds of things going on in Europe that bring down the euro as a currency relative to the dollar. So while all this is going up, the dollar is going up relative to the other shit in the basket, right? So it's just stinking less than the other rotting manure. You know, it's sort of, as rotting manure goes, it's floating on top where it's getting a little bit more fresh air, that's all. But here we have these air gaps in the silver when gold's just plowing right on up. So all of this stuff is temporally coincident. Let me see if I can quickly make this into a little bit more meaningful thing for those people who care. And so we've sort of got this little image here. I mean, it's very difficult. I have very poor lighting up here in this little, laughingly call our studio / office. I mean, I got good lighting. The problem is we've got to keep it's hot as hell. I've got to keep the skylight closed and the fan off while I'm doing this. And just so it doesn't move this thing around because it's suspended. But also, we've got issues with reflection, and I don't want to run the other lights at the moment. Okay, so here's the deal. Let's say here we are, and we're going to look at, how do I best describe this? How do I best display it? Okay, let's try this. So this is the month of August, and we'll display the month of August as a series of weeks, and we'll go down to, say, the third week. And we'll sort of trail off there. So here's our second week, and here's the first week. Okay, coming right up. Okay, so down here is July. We can think of ourselves as being in this last week here. We're coming up into the very last few days of July. So you are here. You're in this spot temporally right now. And so if this is sort of a graph, and we're going to chart this, what we're going to show is that in this area right here, in this last week, we start getting this breakout period that goes for Bitcoin that leads to that climbing by its fingers up to 688. Not saying it's going to hit 688 within this period of time. It may well, because it's going to move very rapidly, in spite of the fact that it's got this climbing to go. Most of the climbing has been done in getting up to that point. The constant bashing around we've seen in the 650s. Discussed that with a number of people about how long we would be stuck in the 650s and how that was going to impact some things. Then we go to 688, and then it's this walk up towards 1,000. That actually starts temporarily here in July. Got all this other weird stuff coming up in the next report that is effectively going to be initiated in this boundary layer between July and August. So as we get into August right up here, we'll see that this particular area of our forecast with Bitcoin has started. And so in the first week of August, we expect to see this period where we're going to get Bitcoin basically doing this little chunk here and a part of that chunk there towards 1,000. So Bitcoin in the first week of August is going to be heading towards its destiny with 1,000. Now note, it's not going to stay in 1,000 very long. So if we look at a chart up here like this, and we get it up here, let's just say that there, miracle happens here. Time is compressed greatly, and we get to 1,000. Can we see that? No. Okay, and so we get to 1,000 right here. Yeah, we can see that. Okay. So, and we're just scrunching up a lot of time here, just to show that we reach 1,000. When it reaches 1,000 on these charts, it's going to drop way the hell back down into about 888 and bounce around from 888 to 897 for a while. But that bouncing around will be on the other side of August. So the 888, 897 bounce around period, insofar as we're seeing linguistically, is showing up in the short-term, longer-term data. The longer-term data I can't get into at the moment as to why it's in that, but it's in the shorter-term data, and it's going to be affecting us post-August. So we're looking for that bounce-around stuff in September, about the same time that all this other crap comes down. And then we go back up long-term, well beyond 1,000, and this takes us in towards, let's put that over here as January of 2017 and the major changes that take place there relative between now and then relative to Bitcoin. So getting back to this, so August is going to be our month that we're going to be transiting through 1,000 and then back down again insofar as Bitcoin's concerned, and bouncing around for a while in the 880s to 897, the same way we've been doing around the 650s. I don't know if you guys can get hold of Bitcoin and do trading like that. If I'm right, you may want to send me a tip if you make a big packet of money off of this. I can always use currency while it lasts. But that's basically what the data is showing in terms of the Bitcoin behavior and how it's going to, I mean, Bitcoin is just really weird. There's some numbers it seems to like, that everybody seems to like having Bitcoin in it. And it'll pass through 888. Chinese are going to love it. It's going to go crazy. There's going to be a big flush. That's the word we're getting there. As a lot of the population rushes into Bitcoin in China, it'll pass 1,000 and then it'll come back down to the 888 area in what the Chartists call consolidation. Anyway, so the interesting part for all of us is that during this period of time going into 1,000, I can't say when it's going to happen relative to a particular day in August, but I know that when we're through with 688, that marks this like threshold for silver. And so sometime in this period of time here, within our first part of August, we reach this threshold period for silver. And this threshold is going to, insofar as it's described in the data, is very much like our 408 to 428 thing. Okay, so anyway, let me just say that we'll get back to that in a second. But the 688 mark in Bitcoin is for silver yet another floor. So so let me get rid of some of this real quick. I got other things to do and it's getting hot up here. So, okay, so just to give you a visual impression of what's going on. Okay, back last year in 2015, we had data sets about 408 to 428 for Bitcoin. When it went through this thing 3 times, then a floor was going to be established for silver. And sure enough, that was its bottom. When Bitcoin went through 428 the 3rd time, that was coincident with the floor being established for silver. So at that point, those two were linked up on those numbers, and we had another exactly the same kind of set show up here recently, about 688. And this is the climbing through 688 business. And when Bitcoin climbs through 688 here and meets these other conditions, then we're going to have yet another floor for silver, wherever silver may be at that time. And so silver may at that time be in the 26, 27 or higher range. There's no way of knowing it right now. I haven't processed the data sets to get in there just yet anyway. And then it also has a bunch of stuff for gold. Now, the interesting part for us is this 428 to 408 to 428 BTC price thing actually occurred. It was really weird. We forecast in ahead of time that we were going to go through it 3 times. It manifests that way, and it did indeed end up coincident with the floor for silver. So we're getting the same kind of a set on 688 and the floor for silver again. Plus, in this particular case, we've got all kinds of language that is very interesting, and if this part links up, then a lot of the other language within that set will also manifest, likely. And a lot of it is about silver, its further progression, and gold and its progression, as well as Bitcoin and some of the longer term stuff. So, for example, in this 688 uh, um, Bitcoin linked to the floor for silver, if we get a situation where we have 688, we pass through $688 for a Bitcoin and certain conditions, I think there's like 3 or 4 minor temporal markers for silver at that point, and we get those, even 2 out of 4, then the likelihood is that we're going to reach the astounding, staggering price of, I think it's 80,808 won to the BTC by the end of this year, 2016. Yeah, let me see this. 80808 won to the BTC by January, sometime in January of 2017. So I'm just saying by the end of this year, because the data sets show this thing happening. Now, I have no idea what the ratio of won to dollars will be at that point. The dollar could crater, maybe won goes way up, maybe the other way, who the hell knows? But this is what we're seeing, is this 80808 business coming up, and all this alliteration around uh, the language of a number. So it's not that we don't actually end up getting digits, we end up getting this written out as in words, and when we end up with it that way, I have some level of confidence in it. Anyway, I've been going too long, so I got to wrap this up and get on to other stuff. A lot of work. Anyway, this right here, this 80808, is within the 688 set and a bunch of other 8s that are all collected. Many of which have actually manifest. The 408, 428, a bunch ahead of that. So I have a lot of confidence in that set and the way it's building, regardless of its, without regard to how it occurred or why. And that's where we're at the moment. So there you go, guys. That's sort of our chart pattern. That's kind of what we're looking for. I think it's manifesting at the moment in terms of Bitcoin, and it's little too steep to walk, but it has little handhold things for it to climb up. So good luck to us all. Some heavy duty stuff is associated within these sets for the social order, for the economy, and for the rest of us. We've got another report coming out as soon as we can do it. We're in a transition, trying to rewrite it, redo the data sets, and get a lot of other stuff done while we may. And so I'm trying to have it out by the 5th. Stay up with our updates. We'll let you know in the email updates as to when we get close to it. Plus, I'm leaking little bits out that I just, are too delicious, too nice, tasty little temporal tasty time bits, treats within the emails. So, and see you guys later. Thanks much for watching. It's a busy place out in the internet. Thanks very much.